Welcome to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast, your guide to future tech trends and innovation in a language you understand. Now, over to your host, Neil Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Regular listeners might remember that I interviewed the guys at SendGrid last year. And for those that don't, SendGrid was founded back in 2009 after graduating from the Techstars program, and they developed an industry-disrupting cloud-based email service to solve the challenges of reliably delivering emails on behalf of growing companies. For example, if you're the CEO of a business that needs to personalise 100,000 emails, 1 million emails, 10 million messages even, you're going to need a company like SendGrid. Now, when I'm on my travels, I always try and meet as many listeners and as many guests as I can. And when I visited Denver in February, I wanted to meet up with the guys at SendGrid, but we just couldn't make it work. However, when Samir, the CEO of SendGrid, flew into London recently, it seemed the universe was giving us another opportunity to sit down, but this time meet face to face. So buckle up and hold on tight, where I'll beam your ears all the way to London, where myself and Samir will talk about how SendGrid has grown from tech startup to hitting the New York Stock Exchange and going public. And we talk about how this digital communication platform is enabling businesses to engage with their customers via email reliably, effectively, and at scale. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, thanks Neil for having me. My name is Samir Dalakia. I'm the CEO at SendGrid. SendGrid's an email platform in the cloud that helps our customers, we have 69,000 of them, deliver email communications reliably and at scale. And it helps those customers engage with their users. And that's really the primary focus of the business, is helping our customers engage with their digital users online.
Well, a big thank you for taking the time to sit down with me today. I had SendGrid on my podcast way back in 2017 to discuss your digital communication study. I understand a lot has happened since then, so can you just tell me what SendGrid has been up to since we last spoke?
2017, Neil, was a really exciting year for SendGrid. One of the most notable events for us is taking the company public. So we had a very successful IPO, an initial public offering on the New York Stock Exchange back in November of 2017. That required a lot of preparation to get the company ready for that. I think it's a great signal to the market and to our customers. In order to withstand the scrutiny of the public eye, you have to have a certain maturity to your business, the right processes, the right controls in place to be a public company, and we spent a lot of time getting ourselves ready to do that. So that was great fun and an exciting event for the company to see us achieve that milestone. One of many behind us, and we hope one of many still to come. So that was one big event. We also had, most recently was GDPR. May 25th was a big day for SendGrid and our 69,000 customers. It's a big change to the landscape, and particularly for the way in which we communicate with subscribers or users of our services. And so with that regulation change, it actually led to, for SendGrid, two streams of activity, one of which making sure, of course, our systems were all compliant with GDPR, that if any of our customers and users said, we no longer want to be part of the system, we could eradicate any history of them being there. That took a lot of engineering work. There's a lot of process that goes behind that. It also led to a historic day for us in terms of volume of send. May 24th, the day before the official GDPR compliance day, which set in on May 25th, was actually our second largest sending day in the history of the company. We sent out over 2 billion emails on that single day, which is quite a lot of emails, as you would imagine, to make sure that consumers knew about this change that was occurring. Lots of brands needed to get that message in front of their users, and we were fortunate to be able to help them do that. 2 billion is quite a lot of emails, and I don't know if, as a consumer, if you're anything like me, my email inbox was filled with notices for terms of service updates, opt-in emails, asking, hey, you've subscribed to this some time ago. Would you still like to receive our messages, or we've changed our terms of service? So I got quite a lot of those emails. SendGrid sent a lot of them. SendGrid sent a lot of them. So a lot of exciting stuff over the last over the last 6-9 months since we saw you last.
Cool. Well, it's also worth highlighting for the listeners, of course, because last time there was about 10,000 miles between us, whereas today we're both in London.
Yeah.
And it's worth pointing out that SendGrid is a Denver-based company. So can you help us understand what SendGrid's present looks like on a global level?
Yeah, so the company is incredibly distributed business. While the people do vastly sit in Denver, we actually get it's nearly 40%, it's about 38% of our revenue comes from outside of the United States. So while the company was built there, we have customers all around the world. We serve customers in over 100 countries around the world. The UK, where we are here today, is actually our second largest market. So we have over 5,000 of those 70,000 paying customers are right here in England, and so we're excited about this market. We've just opened our first office outside of the U.S. here in London, and that happened in late 2017, in October of 2017 also. So it's been a very busy year. We hope that we can replicate what we've been doing here into other geographies, into Brazil and Australia and lots of other places. But we're getting the model right here in London first.
Fantastic. Now, I understand that your mission and vision is to be the world's most trusted customer communications platform. So can you tell me about that future and what you envision the future of the customer communications look like from your perspective?
Yeah, Neil, we obviously may be biased in this. We believe that email will remain the center of gravity of digital communication. It continues to be the online identifier. When you sign up for most new services, you still have to provide your email address. It's the way that the digital economy functions, is off of that ID. All that said, we all now have these computers in our pockets, and there are other ways in which brands are trying to get their message in front of us as users or as consumers. So email remains the most prevalent because it is the most broadly used and deployed. There are billions of online email addresses to which you can send. But as a brand, you can also send a message to a user as a push notification. That's the kind of thing that will show up on the front screen of your iOS or Android device. They can send you an in-app message if you have a mobile app, or even on your web experience, something that will pop up as you're moving around the application. Will say, oh, check out this new feature, or hey, here's a special offer to convert. You could have an online advertisement. And if you think about the difference between an online advertisement and an email, they're actually quite similar. There's a picture, usually some text, a catchphrase, call to action with a link, trying to get you to click on the link that will then take you back to a website or somewhere else to go convert, to do some action. That's true for an email in an inbox. That's also true for an advertisement that's on the side of a website or within the feed of a social application like Facebook. They have the exact same intent and structure. The geography is different, but they're quite similar. So when we talk about a multi-channel communications platform, it's about us enabling our customers to be able to communicate or message to their users across a myriad of these channels, but to do so in an orchestrated way. And today, those channels are all quite siloed. They have a different system and often a person that's managing that system for email that is different than the person that manages the online advertising budget and the tools that they would use. And they today don't interact very much at all. It's quite crazy if you think about it. It's really one user at the center of it. And so that's really kind of the vision for what we'll be building out over the years to come, is this unified platform that allows a brand to build the unified profile and then message across all these channels in a coordinated way.
I suppose it's customers that are leading that change as well, isn't it? Because they expect the exact same experience no matter where they are on whatever device.
That's right. And what they don't want is a redundant message across the different demand. They want to have it feel like a digital conversation, but at scale, like to be able to do that in a personalized way, one-to-one. But as a company, as the brand, you have to be able to do that for 100,000, 1 million, 10 million, 100 million users. To be able to do that at scale on a personalized basis, you really need software to help you do that.
So many know you as the market leader in transactional emails, but you also have an email marketing platform. Can you tell me a little bit about that and discuss what you're seeing changing in that email marketing landscape?
Yeah, the history of the company started, as you said, with these transactional emails. So that's where a developer would integrate our service, our API service, into their application. So if you clicked on the I forgot my password button, that button would trigger some code that would send an automated message to the user. And we do that for many customers, tens of thousands of companies. We got a lot of requests from those customers to add promotional emails. We did transactional, couldn't you just add promotional? Then I'd have all my emails on one platform. And at first we resisted it quite a lot because we wanted to serve this particular community and that particular solution. But we relented and we said, okay, sure, we'll put together something simple. And we introduced that into the market, and we had thousands of our customers immediately adopt this thing. And it became clear that there was a big need in the market. And for our customers in particular, to have an email marketing solution that would integrate seamlessly with the transactional API service that we were already offering, because they wanted to have a single place where they could see all of the engagement of a user across automated emails that were typically triggered based on an activity or an action that a user had taken, but also the promotional activity. So we introduced that product. It's called Marketing Campaigns. We introduced Marketing Campaigns about just over 2.5 years ago now. We introduced it in the first quarter of 2016. And it's off to an extraordinary start. We have over 11,000 paying customers using the product in just over 2 short years. The business is growing at over 100% year over year, so it's doubling in size, and it's just a very large market opportunity. There are many competitors in the landscape that have been serving the email marketing world for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Candidly, sometimes the products look like they were built 10 and 15 and 20 years ago. So it's a great opportunity for SendGrid to come to the market and really disrupt the category with something that's brand new, built from the ground up on top of one of the world's largest sending infrastructures. So what we do at scale. So we can help companies that want to graduate off of small solutions that are built for the smaller businesses or the lower end of the market. They'll typically graduate, so to speak, to SendGrid because they need higher scale. They'll need a little bit more support. They'll have questions about email deliverability and why are my messages going into the spam folder instead of over here? Because that's really at the core of what SendGrid does. This email marketing product's been enjoying a lot of success.
Excellent news. So how is SendGrid using AI and machine learning? I mean, the big buzzwords this year, you can't escape from them, but how are you using them at SendGrid to ultimately better serve your customers?
So machine learning has so many different opportunities to be leveraged in a business like ours. We use it in a myriad of places. Number one is as a defense system. So we care a great deal at SendGrid about sending wanted mail. We're all consumers. I don't want stuff in my inbox that I didn't ask for any more than anybody else. And so we put up a lot of defenses to guard against spammers or phishers from being able to use our infrastructure to send mail that consumers didn't ask for. So we actually have machine learning systems that will analyze new users coming onto the system and determine if they look like good senders or spammers. And if they look like spammers, we kick them off. We won't let them sign up, or we'll fire them effectively from using our system as quickly as the machine can figure out if they're good or bad. We have machine learning systems that after they've signed up will be monitoring the level of engagement that the users to whom they are sending have with the emails. And if those aren't high, we squash how many emails they're allowed to send until we see the engagement, and then we'll open it up. And if we don't see it, we'll actually terminate their account. And no human being, we have 70,000 customers. You can't do that with human beings. You have to do it with machines. So we build machine learning systems to do that. We are building a whole suite of capabilities that we call ACE. It's the Adaptive Communication Engine that encapsulates all of the knowledge and expertise that we have around email deliverability into software, so that our system, what our people know, gets encoded into the machines, so that we can best improve the deliverability rates of our customers' mail making it to the inbox, to inbox providers like Gmail and Yahoo and Hotmail, and there are literally dozens and dozens of other inbox providers, and the rule set that and the way that those inbox providers receive the mail is all different. So you need machines to be able to help you do that. So we use machine learning in a lot of different areas for the better of our customers.
And how quickly has that transformed your business and how you're doing things now? Is it almost overnight, or is it,
It allows you. It really does, Neil, allow you to scale in a way that you just couldn't do if you were in the absence of it. I'll just give you the example of the automated machine learning based defense systems. Because we have those in place, we're able to open our platform to the world, to any customer can come and sign up for an account, and we make it very frictionless for a new user to get started with our software. They can literally have us up and running in minutes, like in hours. In a world without machine learning, you just couldn't expose yourself like that to bad actors coming and taking advantage of your system. But because you have the machine learning capabilities in place, you're able to open it up. So it really has had a transformative effect on SendGrid's business. The rate of new customer adoption has actually increased over the years that I've been here for almost 4 years now. And our growth rate of new customers has been almost 2 times higher because we've been able to open up the system to new users in a way we couldn't previously.
I understand SendGrid had its second largest sending day over on May the 24th, which you mentioned a few moments ago, the GDPR there, with many emails being about the company's updated privacy protection to comply with GDPR. I mean, what are your thoughts on GDPR going forward? Did May the 24th go as smooth as you expected? Are there things that you would change? Or
it did. It was quite smooth for us. We were very pleased that we were able to send at that volume, 2 billion updates on behalf of our customers on that day. What I think is we're still in very early days of GDPR, really understanding what's going to happen with that new regulation. How does it get enforced by the EU? How do companies think about engaging with their users on this topic? We've had a range of customers, some who will be on one side of the spectrum and say, I'm not sure if I had good practices in place before, so I need to go get everybody to opt back in to my lists. That has a fairly sizable effect for them. For others, and particularly those that we've been working with more closely, we've been helping them with best practices for years, and for them it is in some ways kind of a non-event, because they know that the people that they're sending to were emails that they received in legitimate ways, that they were the consumer gave the brand the right or the opportunity to send them communications. They have practices in place that will say, well, if I haven't seen any engagement from this user in this period of time, I'm going to stop sending to them altogether. And so for those customers who have been following all the best practices that we preach, it was a non-event, and not much change for them. So it does have a varied effect depending on the sophistication of the sending practices that the brand had prior to GDPR.
So looking forward, do you see a similar legislation being introduced in the US?
It's interesting. I think it'll depend on how things go with GDPR. There was the canned spam policy that started in Canada, back in, it's probably 15, 20 years ago now. GDPR is the first in a long time to really talk about privacy and protections of consumers' data as it relates to brands. I think we're entering an interesting age around privacy and how information is being used. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were more regulations to come on a global basis. I don't know if the U.S. is more or less likely to jump into that, but I think globally we'll continue to see more and more of this over the years to come.
Definitely. So SendGrid was the first startup accelerator graduate to go public with Dropbox shortly thereafter. So how has SendGrid's debut as a public company been going, and do you have any guidance for any listeners who might be thinking about going public but so nervous about all that pre-work that you mentioned?
Yeah, going public is certainly not for the faint of heart. It does really require a certain maturity in your business, and we've certainly enjoyed it. We've had a great first couple quarters being public, had our first two earnings calls. I would offer maybe a few bits of advice for folks that are thinking about it. Number one, first and foremost, you have to have an extraordinary degree of predictability in your business. If you can't, the drawer test that we talk about is, write on a piece of paper or on a sticky, exactly how much revenue, how much turnover do I expect to have, what's my profitability going to be for the quarter. Put it in the drawer. Do that 4 times over the course of the year preceding. Yeah. If you are within 1 to 2% of what actually happens over the course of those 4 times, then you're probably ready. If you're off by more than a few percent, you're not ready to be in the public eye. And because if you get that wrong, if your prediction of if your guidance to the financial markets about what you will do is materially off of your actual performance, the penalty for being wrong is far worse than the celebration that occurs if you are more than right. And so you have to have that predictability. So that would be one. Number 2 would be, I would say, really focusing on scaling your culture. We always talk a lot about business stuff, of course, predictability, financials, profitability. But a lot of leaders, sometimes underestimate the amount of time you have to put into thinking about the people side of your business. Yeah. And in particular, how do you scale your culture? So when you're a startup and you have 15 or 20 people in a room, it's quite easy to manage your culture. You see each other every single day. You all know each other by name. There's a social regulation to the way in which you interact that's quite easy when you're that few people. When you're at hundreds of people and growing at a very fast rate, you have to be very, very intentional about your culture and the values that underpin it. And the only way that it will continue to scale in a way that's consistent with what you want is if you have embedded into the day-to-day activities of the company. It has to become part of the process of how everyone interacts to make sure that it gets shaped and reinforced throughout the life cycle, if you will, of the employee. So just examples that we've done at SendGrid, every new employee that is interviewed or a candidate coming in, we have 4 H's for our values: happy, hungry, humble, and honest. They'll get a question about happy, a hungry, a humble, and an honest. Each interviewer will ask them questions about it to get a feel. Is there a good culture fit here with the candidate and the company? If yes, then they get hired. If no, they won't get an offer. Even if they are technically, by skill set off the charts, it doesn't matter if they're a bad culture fit. So we embed it in the interview process. Once they come to the company, I personally do an introductory talk to every new employee as part of their onboarding about the importance of culture at SendGrid. If you have been at SendGrid for a while, if you're up for a promotion, embedded in the document that your manager is producing for you about why you should get promoted, there's a section on the 4 H's. How does this person exemplify the values of our culture? So you just kind of build it into everything you do in your business. We give out awards every quarter called the 4H Awards, and they're nominated by their peers, and they're videos that are made of those recipients who win the award. and it just sends a very strong signal to your teammates. The culture of our business really matters. So as you're scaling your business, you go public, you really need to make sure you're focusing on the culture and have I embed my values throughout the whole thing, because you won't have the time to be managing your culture at the same level of detail at the scale that you'll be. So that would be another area of guidance or advice for if you're going public.
Did you have any resistance there as regards culture change and everything? Because you've got the younger, more agile startup where you just get things done.
Yeah.
And then when you're a public company, I would imagine you got a lot more legislation and a lot more processes.
Yeah. And
that could feel quite stifling to the more creative people.
Yeah.
Was there any challenges there around that?
Without question, I would say there's some. In particular, it's helping the company that's going through that transition understand that process is actually not a bad word.
Yeah.
That's not a process that actually can be quite a good thing. When you get to a certain scale, process is an enabler. It's not there to constrain you. It's there to enable you.
Yeah.
And if you've ever tried to work on a large-scale project with a lot of people that didn't have process, you know that process is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just a mess. It's a disaster. You can't actually manage that many human beings trying to move in the same direction without some process. So I think there's some education around why things do need to be different as you grow and scale. And it doesn't have to be at all at the expense of creativity. Like I said, it should be an enabler, not a constraint. But that takes a little bit of getting used to as you make some of those changes. And yeah, I think the biggest change, I would say, on the culture side, we were very transparent with our teammates. We said, when we go public, we're not going to lie to you and tell you that nothing's going to change. There are going to be changes. Yeah. It's going to feel different in certain ways. The most important way in which it's going to feel different, particularly for SendGrid at our company, we were always very, very open with all of our financial numbers. So every month, we wanted to train all of our teammates on, this is how you build a software company. I know you work in fill-in-the-blank function, but I wanted every teammate at SendGrid to understand how the software business works. So we would be very transparent about, here are our monthly financials, here are our monthly metrics, here's how we're trending. You can't do that when you're public because you have quarterly numbers that you're reporting publicly, and you put your teammates at risk of insider trading if they know how things are going within the quarter that the rest of the world does not, if public investors don't. So we had to say, we're going to have to pull back on that disclosure within the quarter. We'll still do everything that we did on a monthly basis, on a quarterly basis, but now it's going to have to be on a much longer interval.
Fantastic. Well, a huge thank you for taking the time to come and speak with me today. But before I do let you go, could you just remind the listeners of where they can find you guys online and maybe contact a member of your team if they just want to carry on that conversation that we started today?
Yeah, terrific, Neil. Thanks. Yeah, no, we'd love for folks to come and learn a little bit more about us. Please visit us at www.sendgrid.com, and we hope to be able to serve you.
Well, before you go back to the US, I've got to ask, are you soaking up the World Cup atmosphere?
So much fun. It's so much fun. I know the England team is very excited after their win on Sunday, but I know it is a wonderful thing, I think, in this day and age in particular, to have something that brings us all together. There's plenty that divides us, but seeing how this one game that we all play around the world can bring us all together, fans and players alike, is a beautiful thing. So it's been quite fun.
Absolutely. And one of the things I always say at the end of every episode is technology works best when it brings people together. And that's something that you're doing with SendGrid as well. So a big thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Neil. Thanks for having us.
There were a few stats that Samir dropped there. I mean, SendGrid has processed over 40 million emails each month for internet and mobile-based customers, as well as more traditional enterprises. And also, of course, on May the 24th, during that run-up to GDPR, they sent 2 billion emails in one day. Now, as a tech guy, that kind of bandwidth is just mind-blowing. It's also important to highlight how SendGrid was the first startup accelerator to graduate to ever go public, with Dropbox following shortly thereafter, of course. And I also love Samir's guidance for listeners, for anyone that is thinking about going public too. I think there's some real invaluable advice there. But over to you. Any big talking points from this interview today? anything that you want to talk about, any value that you can offer or add to this subject. As always, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. And don't forget to keep those messages and pics of where you're listening to the show coming in too. I'm also heading on a trip to Croatia in a few weeks, so if I do have any listeners listening in Croatia that have got any tips for my travels or would like to meet me for a drink, just let me know. So thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me again today, and I hope you'll join me again tomorrow because I've got another great guest lined up. But until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thanks for listening to the Tech Blog Writer Podcast. Until next time, remember, technology is best when it brings people together.